What's going on, guys? My name's Chris. You're watching Raising the Bar. And today we're going to be talking about perfectionism and why it's a bad thought process to have. So when I say striving to be perfect, what I'm talking about is when you try something new and you want to be so good at it right out the gate that if you're not, maybe you don't take that chance. Or perhaps maybe you feel like you did a bad job. Now, the reason why this is a bad way to go about thinking is very simple. And that's the fact that, firstly, perfection doesn't exist. But we want to be exceptional. When we say perfect, we just really mean we want to be exceptional, very good. But we oftentimes will fail to realize and recognize in the moment that in order to be perfect or exceptional in something, it's going to take a lot of practice. Now, this is common sense, we all know this, but when it comes to certain situations, we tend to put this pressure onto ourselves that we need to be perfect or we need to be exceptional right out of the gate or else it's not going to work. And oftentimes that stems from trying to derive validation from external places. And when I say derive validation from external places, what I'm talking about is maybe it's in the form of compensation. Maybe it's in the form of validation from individuals, family members, friends, coworkers. When we eliminate the external variables of pressure and we focus strictly on ourselves and we control what we can control and we eliminate the external variables of validation, acceptance, and all of those things, it can become a little bit easier to try to not necessarily be perfect right away, but understand and accept that perfection or being exceptional is a timeline. In order to get to the end of that timeline, there's a lot of things that need to happen along the way. And that often comes in the form of various types of practice, research, studying, making changes along the way. And then ultimately over time, as you refine your craft, you begin to get better and better and better. But when you start something new and you do have that mindset that you need to be perfect right away, what I'd like you to remember in those situations is that in order for you to get to where you want to be, the most important thing is getting started. It's not necessarily about doing it perfectly or having everything all mapped out, because eventually you're going to figure that out along the way. If you just got started though and was able to get the ball rolling, then over time you're going to be able to craft something a little bit more realistic in terms of what exceptional looks like. Because when you start something new, although in your head you might even have everything all mapped out, you think, I know exactly how to do this. But then when you get in there and you try it for yourself, well, guess what? It doesn't always go according to the textbook. So we need to be able to be agile in those situations, and that's where getting started comes in. The act of getting started is by far the most important thing. But as human beings, we want to be good. We want to feel validated, and we want to know that we're doing a good job. I'm going to give you a few tips as to how to try to break away from this way of thinking, so that way you can not only get started, but you can be on your path to becoming perfect and exceptional at what it is you're looking to accomplish. So the first thing is the mindset. As I mentioned, we need to change that mindset first and foremost. We need to eliminate the factors of validation. We need to drive our own internal drive. We can't be seeking that from external places because ultimately it's going to deter us. And, perhaps you might feel embarrassed if you don't do good, or you'll feel less than, or whatever it happens to be. But if you disregard all of that and you try to just remember that you are your own person and you are going through your journey in life and you are trying to do better, and you also can understand and acknowledge that in order to get better and in order to excel, you're going to have to make those mistakes. So that's step one. First thing we want to do is acknowledge and accept that we are not going to be perfect. We're not going to be exceptional. It's something that we're new at. But ultimately, over time, we're going to get better and better. So that's step one. Acknowledge and embrace the process. The next thing that I think is extremely important is being able to let go. Let go from the outcomes. Don't be outcome dependent when trying something new or trying to improve upon something. Because if you're outcome dependent thinking, okay, if this doesn't work, then, it's terrible. That's not necessarily the case. Just because something may not work the first time doesn't mean it won't work the second time, so on and so forth. And it also allows you to stay agile. when it comes to making that change and trying to grow and become better at something. You often see this in jobs. When you start a new career or perhaps you change industries, typically there's a massive learning curve that comes along with that. And you could be a rock star in one industry, in one segment of business, but then when you transition over to another segment, you get humbled very quickly. I've been in that position myself. I've been top tier ranked performer at one position and then at the very bottom at another because I transitioned industries and transitioned roles. And in that situation, you walk in with a lot of confidence, but then you get humbled and you realize not only do you not know it all, but there's a lot that you need to do in terms of your development to be able to exceed in this position. And that's no reason to get deterred, but that's just the reality of things. So eliminating being outcome dependent when it comes to your decision to progress is very important because you won't have that massive emotional burden when things don't necessarily go according to plan. The next step, in step 3, is very important, and that's beginning to accept yourself. And this is something that's very difficult to do. I myself still struggle with this because I put so many various layers of pressure on myself to succeed, and I want it so bad that if I don't have a certain level of success, and it comes from my own internal competitive nature, that I feel less than. But I'm trying to, and continuously trying to accept myself for the present, and also the mindset that I have. And that's the reason that I'm telling you so openly about this, is because I'm not perfect, neither are you, but we can work together to make each other better. And that's what this whole channel is all about. So acceptance of yourself is a little bit deeper than vanity. When I say acceptance, what I'm talking about is being able to acknowledge your existing skill set. Not lying to yourself, not being overconfident and arrogant about something that you may not necessarily know about. Because then in turn you're lying to yourself, you're not accepting the reality. When you try something new or you embark on a new venture, take this channel for instance, there's a lot that you need to learn. There's a lot of things that are going to be difficult at first, will get easier over time, and that's true with everything. When you start something new, understand it is called new for a reason. If it was old, it would be called old, right? We need to continue to develop, but understand that that baseline foundational knowledge that you have is good and enough to get you in the door and on the path. In order for you to keep going down that path, there's got to be a series of turns that you're going to have to make. And in order for you to navigate correctly, it's going to come down to your dedication and your ability to learn. But accepting your current base of knowledge and understanding that there's nothing wrong with not knowing everything. And the last step, which flows straight through from step 3, is stop focusing on the later. By focusing in the future, you give yourself anxiety, right? Pretty safe to say, because we're so tied up and caught up with thinking about what's going to happen next and what the trajectory looks like, where will I be, what's going to happen. Stop it. There's no sense of even thinking about that. It's a waste of mental bandwidth because ultimately, let's face it, not only do we not have the ability to change that, it's a waste of mental bandwidth because ultimately all we can do is change the present and what we're doing next. Sure, I'm not saying not to be strategic in how you're going to go about approaching, the days, months, years, decades, so on and so forth. What I'm talking about is stay present. Because by you having the ability to stay present, not only is it going to mitigate those negative, anxious emotions that seep in when you try something new, but it'll make it that much more easier for you to learn. Because oftentimes, if we're riddled with anxiety and stress, it's difficult for us to actually absorb what's happening around us because we're so internalized when we're in that type of a headspace. It becomes very difficult. If I was trying to teach you something new and you were an anxious mess because you knew something bad was going to happen to you in an hour, do you really think you'd be able to retain what I was telling you? Probably not, right? And the reason is because when your mind's preoccupied, your ability to digest and absorb information drastically goes down. And in order for you to be able to learn from what you're doing and to become exceptional and become better at it, you need to be able to absorb and acknowledge everything around you. Because that is going to be able to fuel the next decision that you make. But being able to focus on the future is good for having long-term goals and everything like that. But on the day-to-day, focus on the tasks at hand. Do your best. Do everything in your power to do an exceptional job on a daily basis. And I think what you're going to quickly realize is that as time goes on, you are going to become better and better and better. And then when you look back and you think about where you came from, you're going to feel very good about what you've been able to accomplish. Thank you so much for listening to this video, guys. Hope this video helps. Feel free to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Feel free to jump on the website if you want to have a chat with me, RTBTransformations.com. And with that, make today great, everybody. I'm out of here.